The summer months are a time when adolescents often experience periods of no supervision since school is out and many parents work. Research shows June and July are the top months for teenagers to begin experimenting with drugs and alcohol. Oh no. Psychologist and CBS News contributor Lisa Damour is here with some tips on constructive ways to keep our kids occupied. You always hear anecdotes about parents just throwing a party September 1st or whenever school starts up again. Yeah. What are some constructive ways that kids can occupy themselves?
Well, so one of the things we know is that kids do well with structure, right? And it's, teenagers work hard during the school year, they deserve some downtime in the summer, but ideally a teenager should have somewhere they're supposed to be, something they're supposed to do most days. That we don't want just huge swaths of unstructured time for teenagers.
What happens if you are a working parent and you're not always around? How do you structure that time in a way that works?
Well, so one of the things we want to do is to try to fill it with meaningful activities. Jobs, volunteer work, sports, anything, that kind of limits the amount of unsupervised and unstructured time they have. One of the things when we look at the research is for things to go wrong for teenagers, temptation and opportunity have to come together, right? And lots of unstructured time and lots of lack of supervision creates a lot of opportunity.
Okay. You said that having a paid job obviously brings higher self-esteem, which is important. Yep. But there are studies now showing that fewer and fewer kids are getting jobs in the summer. Yeah. Why is that happening?
So the economy is shifting, and so that is making it harder for kids to get the kinds of jobs they used to. School years are longer, things like that. And so though this new research shows that paid jobs actually boost self-esteem more than volunteer work does, perhaps because of the pay or the sense that I need to be there, I've got to show up, we still want structure for kids. So even if they can't find a paid job, they need to do something meaningful with their time. The other thing is, they can fall back on the classics, like working in yards, babysitting, things like that. That those are always available. Lemonade stands. Exactly.
We did a piece last night on the Evening News about how teenagers are foregoing being lifeguards, and so that's going to older workers because they're taking those jobs instead. One question that a lot of parents have of teenagers is how much independence do you give your child as far as who their friends are? What are they doing with their friends? You want them to be making their own decisions, but obviously you need to input that as well.
Yes, so a lot of this comes down to the teenager, and one of the things that we say all the time is the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. If you have a pretty well-behaved teenager, you can usually count on that. Again, limit the amount of time I think that they have without any supervision. Check in. I'm always interested, too, in terms of how teenagers assess risk. Some teenagers assess it in terms of what are the chances we're going to get caught? Other teenagers assess it in terms of what are the chances someone could get hurt?
Right.
If you have a kid in the first category, you probably want to keep a pretty close eye.
This is this period of downtime. The internet video games beckon.
Yes, they do.
How do you and if you're not at home, how do you police that?
Well, that's a good question. I think one of those things is you may have sort of honor systems and then have some way to check in on the honor system. I think the other thing is they need to have other places they're supposed to be. Right. That helps a lot.
The lemonade stand calls.
The lemonade stand calls, grandma's house calls.
Read a good book. Right.
A book calls. Imagine that.
Lisa Damour, great to have you on. Thank you.
You bet.
And later this morning, Lisa will join us for a Facebook Live chat to continue the conversation. You can watch her on our CBS This Morning Facebook page.